21st of March. A special meeting of the City of Sandy Oaks City Council is now in session. We'll have a roll call. Mr. Ortega.
Present.
Mr. Tremblay. Mr. Gay.
Here, sir.
Ms. Ball.
Here.
Mr. Thomasini.
Here.
We have a 100% quorum. And at this time, we'll stand and have a short invocation and a pledge. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, we thank Thee again for this opportunity to do the work of this community. Be with us as we do it, and we do it for the benefit of those in this community. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the item number 3 on the agenda is the consent agenda. Of 3A, approve the minutes for February 22nd, my correction, February 12th, 2015, and 3B, approve the minutes for February 26th, 2015. Do we have any discussion on these two items? There be no discussion. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Unanimous? Okay. Okay. Item number 4. Distribute to each alderman and alderwoman the received proposals submitted for the consideration of the position of city attorney. There might be some items that we might want to talk about that could cause us to go to executive session. All of these were handed out, and each member of the council was given about 3 days to go over these. I know there was, what, 7 items, 7 inputs. So does anybody feel the need to go into executive session on this, or has everybody?
Well, this just says that we're going to distribute them. It doesn't say that we're going to discuss and approve or select.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah. That's correct, yeah. There can only be just distribution.
So we have to put on the agenda again another item to
Yeah.
actually select one?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does say submit for consideration.
I don't think the way it's drafted, we can, if your intention is to select, or, I know it was on the Thursday agenda, but on the Saturday one, it's different, so, I don't believe there can be any discussion or, vote the way it's drafted.
think there's a lot of information here to absorb, there's a lot of references. I think we need a little more time, and I would say like months or weeks. I think we could probably set something up for one evening next week, Tuesday or Wednesday. Give us a little more time to absorb some of this,
Okay.
maybe make a few phone calls, talk to some of the references. I know myself, I've narrowed it down to 3 or 4. But I would like to do a little research into some of the reference files. That's what I'd like to do.
Mr. Tremblay has made the suggestion that we investigate this a little bit more by checking out references and et cetera. And does anybody have any questions on his suggestion?
I'd also suggest that we try to limit this to the applications that were submitted from the immediate area, and probably not consider someone from Austin or Corpus Christi, not to discriminate against them, but I would like to have access to them more easily than if we have to go out of town or out of the city to get them. And should we need them here, I don't see, once we get situated, I don't see the need to have an attorney present at all the meetings or at every meeting. So having them from the general area would surely be easier on cost.
Because most of them charge for mileage time.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why I'm saying that. So I'd like to also suggest, I won't make that a motion, but I just suggest that we look at the packets from the attorneys who are in this general area, San Antonio area, and not Austin or Corpus Christi. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, we could consider putting this on, making a special,
And just
A
for this
short
purpose.
special
right,
just for the
this
purpose of-
You know, yeah, just for this purpose. Maybe give us a few more days.
Sure.
On Monday, Tuesday, I have some time. I'll make some phone calls myself personally, just for my own personal peace of mind.
okay, we'll just, if we have to.
There's probably 2 in the packet that stand out to me.
Yeah.
I'd like to just
Yeah.
research it a little further.
There is a 3-day posting requirement that we have on this, so.
Wednesday?
When,
Well, we have a meeting scheduled next Saturday anyway. Can we not
Yeah.
do that
I'm
ahead
going
of
out
that?
town Thursday, we'll be back till Sunday.
Oh.
So,
So you won't be here for that one? Okay.
Why can't we just put it on the next general, regular meeting? That's. we're
Which
looking
is
at
what, the 9th?
It's the night.
It's not that far away.
So I didn't bring my calendar with me, I left my phone at the house.
I think it's the 9th.
Who's got a calendar?
I've got one on my phone.
The 9th? Yeah, you're looking at, 2.5 weeks out. That wouldn't be unreasonable, I don't think.
Joel, that's the mayor. I won't be available that week, but we're not gonna be present then. Thanks for
Let's just, well, on a general meeting, that wouldn't hurt us, I don't believe, just one person down.
yeah.
no, not in the general.
We'd have,
Yeah,
What
we
about
still have
Thursday the
one.
2nd?
would like your input though.
Yeah, so then I agree with Mr. Tremblay. We just put it on the regular agenda.
Regular agenda's all right with you, isn't it? Yeah,
And that was the 9th of April, right?
okay. Yeah.
Okay, there's been a suggestion made by Mr. Tremblay to put this item on the April 9th regular meeting agenda. Is there any more discussion on it? Well, is there a
I'll make that a
motion?
motion, that's a
Okay.
motion.
I'll
Motion.
second
That we move
Okay.
this item to the April 9th regular council meeting
Okay.
for consideration and selection, hopefully.
Okay. Any other, got a second to his motion?
I do.
Okay. Okay, we have motion by Mr. Gay, put this item on the 9th of April, regular, excuse me, regular monthly council meeting, seconded by Mr. Gay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Item number 5 on the agenda. Discuss and consider the property tax exemptions to include disabled veterans, disabilities, 65 and older, homestead exemptions, etc. If any exemptions are approved, it must be done by ordinance and submitted to the Bear County Tax Assessor Collector. We have,
I got a question. Does each one of the exemptions have to be a ordinance in among itself?
It could be done in a single ordinance. Usually what happens is when it gets near the fiscal year, into the fiscal year, sometime around July, the tax assessor collector will send a packet kind of outlining all the different possibilities. Now, right now we don't have a property tax, so some of the normal things you have to consider you won't have to as far as rollback elections and stuff like that. But one of the things they give you is like a worksheet, and you can to inform them which exemptions you want to set. So, and then, the mayor's list the more common ones here, and so generally speaking, those decisions are typically made right around budget time because it has a budget impact. And so you'll get, for example, a certified taxable value amount so that you can start applying these things. So if you pick an arbitrary percentage, you'll know exactly how much tax you'll collect, or approximately how much tax you'll collect, and then you can start working in the numbers. If we give a homestead, if we give it over 65, you'll see how much it reduces it. So while you can certainly make the decision now, people typically make that decision when they also have the information about property valuations, so that they can put an estimated number.
And when does that normally come out?
Like I said, it's usually around July, because you need to have everything done in time for the October 1st fiscal year. So everything's done usually at the end in August, September type area.
And whenever we give one of these exemptions, we have to set an amount for that exemption also? It's not an automatic amount, correct?
Correct. Like usually with homestead exemption, there'll be it'll be like a floor. So you'll say the first 30,000. So you can give a $30,000 exemption, or for whoever that applies to. The only exemption that's not optional is the disabled veterans exception, and that's federal law. So, and again, you most certainly can do it now, but it'd probably be a little bit more of a meaningful debate if you do it when you have the percentages in front, or the estimated valuations in front of you, and you can. For example, we don't know how many residents are claiming the exemption right now. And different communities have a different percentage. Some have a high number of over 65, some have lower. So it's helpful to have all that information in front of you to know exactly how much.
We need to look at the demographics.
Right.
where does that come
Totally.
from?
It comes from the appraisal district.
Oh.
Sends that
Do
out.
y'all have that available? I know you said you've been working with them on getting something
Right.
realigned based on mobile homes and land, that there was a disconnect there. So
Right.
I'm hoping you have a profile of some kind.
Well, we had one for last year because we
But you don't have anything from the work that they've done.
Well, they're I believe they're still in because there's right now we're kind of in the process where people are contesting their valuations, and so there's an adjustment that gets sent out, and someone in the city should be receiving it. If it's not the mayor, we need to get on the list. But like every 2 or 3 weeks, they send a new adjustment. So as cases come out, they adjust your taxable valuation and send out a new report for the whole county. so all that hasn't been, most of it has, I'm sure like 99% of it is, we're not, we're so far in that there's not a lot outstanding, but that does change. And certain exemptions go away. So for example, we have the Dollar General coming up. That was probably agriculturally exempt before, and by the time we get to the time of the year where we're setting a property tax for next year, it's probably going to be on the books as a commercial property with a new.
Don't they have a
value.
5-year back history they have to pay up once you convert it from ag?
Correct, yeah, so in certain ones, even with the over 65 exemption, there's a rollback period. And so,
Can you tell me, this item related to exemptions, I'm assuming this is a statute? Somewhere there's a reference that we can go read
Right.
that says, here's the rules and regulations that apply to
correct.
this.
And I think TML has all these,
Who? TML?
Texas Municipal League, they have a whole packet on, or a little booklet on the various types of exemptions that you can give. And what are their limitations? Of course, some of them have caps and limitations.
Yeah, I just don't want to get in a position that we've recently experienced where we didn't understand and know all the facts.
Well, this time around, you're going to have, you have the normal time window. What I would recommend is usually around June, you start the process and you have budget workshops. We don't have many departments now, but by June, our marshal's office should be open and so forth and so on. So we start with each department submitting a proposed budget. You get input from the residents, and you can start putting together an estimate of what you think you're going to need for next year. You also look at our current. By then, we'll have more of a better snapshot of how much the city's spending on its various expenses. And since this is really going to be the first year where we have expenses, it's going to be, you're going to have to determine how much revenue that you would like to raise, set that amount, and then if we're going to give exemptions, adjust it. Once you're kind of on a cycle, it's a little bit easier because you're mainly just tweaking it at that point. We want to increase the police department a little bit or that, but the first year there's going to be a lot more into it.
So we're kind of doing this before, you're saying that really, we can get more information later to do this better job on this later?
I would. I mean, yes. I mean, you could set an exemption right now, and then when you start that process, you already have that as something you have to factor in. But it may be more meaningful when you kind of actually have a half years of operations, the property valuations estimate for next year in front of you, so you kind of know how much valuation we have, and then you can start making the adjustments. Because for every exemption you give, you're going to need a certain amount to fund the city. So for every exemption you give, you're going to have to raise the tax a little bit higher on everybody else to compensate, because you're needing to get to a certain number for what you expect the city to operate. And so some of those discussions come in play. Maybe now when it's kind of abstract, you may want to give a very big exemption. Perhaps once you actually see the real numbers, that might adjust, or the reverse. Maybe now you're a little bit more modest and want to adjust later. My recommendation is do it all together, and so you can consider everything, and then when you finally make your decisions on we're going to spend this amount, this is how we're going to raise it, and it can all be done at that time. But there's nothing wrong with even now starting to get more information about it. I mean, everyone doesn't have to just go out on their own. If you'd like, we can.
Where would we start? I mean, what would we need to do first?
Well, the most cost-effective way is for us to go to TML or ACOG and get the stuff that they already have prepared and distribute it so everyone can read. And then we can even put it on a future agenda for just a Q&A if folks have specific questions. I mean, there's nothing wrong with starting educating yourself on how all this is going to happen.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Where would we start with that?
Like I said, I would start with the TML's packet, and you can have the clerk distribute it once we.
Oh, go ahead.
The amount exempted on these items, it somewhat varies. I get a disabled veterans exemption, but I don't get the same exemption as a 100% disabled veteran. So, but all of that information is available at the tax appraiser's office.
I understand that, and I understand each taxing entity. So whether it be the hospital district or the ESD or
Right.
City of Sandy Oaks, we can all, each taxing entity can establish those guidelines. So, but I just want to make sure that we are well versed in this before we pass anything.
Absolutely.
And I would look on the TML training schedule. I know we've recommended that before, but they have quite a few seminars and all these various topics. So that might be something that we can find that folks can attend leading up to the June timeframe when you would start the process. But it takes about 2 months, 2.5 months really to put your budget together. And again, you got to have public hearings on it and
So these, whatever exemptions that the city passes have to be to the assessor's office by a certain date to be
Correct.
effective October.
right. And they're very good. They send out early on the timeline for everything. You'll know all your
Okay.
deadlines. But yes, there's a when you finally pass your tax rate and all of that, it's like a worksheet and you put in all the exemptions that you're offering that year. And yes, it does have to be established by ordinance, but you turn that in, and they have a whole directions on how to fill it out and all of that. So, and again, this year we're not going to have some of the issues that we'll have even next year with regard to rollback rates and since we haven't established a property, this is the first time around. The very first time you establish a property tax, there's no rollback trigger because there's nothing to compare it to. But
Even for Dollar General?
I'm sorry.
Even for Dollar General?
Well, if you recall, the city took no action, so the city has never established a property tax, which is different than setting it at
But the
zero.
county has.
The county, but we're just talking about the only thing that
Okay.
we can is,
So the county could potentially do a rollback.
yes, the county,
Okay.
the main one's the school district, that's
Okay.
the majority of the tax, and then
Got
then
it.
probably the county's
We're just
next.
talking city,
County
okay.
or city, and then the smaller districts are as well. But so yeah, they're paying property tax, they're just not paying a city property tax.
Mr. Gutierrez from the tax assessor collector, he works for Mr. Udeste. He has expressed a desire, if need be, he can come and talk to us.
That'd be great. Maybe you can come and do a presentation.
Okay.
I highly recommend that. You know, the sooner the better. Just kind of get everybody versed since we've never, since everyone's fairly new at it. I think that'd be a good idea.
One of the things that disturbs me about what you said there was coming in here and setting what we need and then setting the tax according to that. I don't think that's what any of us were about. And I caution the council that when we ran for this, we pretty much told everybody that what we were looking to do was look at what money we had and set our budget accordingly. Not set a budget and then try to match funds to come up to that. That's a real dangerous precedent, I think. We need to not so much worry about how much is coming in. Let's just worry about how much we're spending.
Remember, it was mainly, without giving the catchphrase, more of a zero-based budgeting. Just say, okay, this is what we want to do. This is what's going to be required to run the city. But yeah, certainly, I mean, the council's free to do whatever however you want to get to that number.
All part of the budget process.
And
We
absolutely.
can get services if we don't.
Yeah, I understand that.
Figure what we need, and then
Right.
we have to.
So since we passed the zero budget for fiscal year 2014, now it has to be referendum for any property tax we set?
No, because the city we didn't set a zero tax. We never implemented a tax, so there is no property tax. The
That
difference between-
conflicts with a lot of things that I've seen and heard. I mean, Jess Fields even said that we set a zero tax.
Well, he just,
Well, no, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, but he's
Yeah,
getting that
right.
information from somewhere. And we did vote for zero tax. We said no tax in the first year.
Right, and we can double check the minutes, but my recollection is the council voted to not set a property tax.
Is that not the
Which
same
is-
as setting zero?
It's effectively the same, but I think the only technical difference would be and it wouldn't really make much sense to say we're gonna establish a tax and set it at zero. But if you're a community that had a tax and then dropped it to zero, and then try to raise it again, I think the rollback provisions might trigger.
Right, nothing was officially sent to the
Right.
tax assessor saying that we're setting
Right.
a
It's different than the initial,
Being
Okay.
0 or whatever, so we never really set
We
one
never set
officially,
one,
nothing
no.
was
Okay.
submitted to the tax assessor collector.
Well, then in your opinion, we should just, what, should we table this,
I-
postpone it?
or you could most certainly take the mayor's suggestion and maybe invite Mr. Gutierrez from the tax assessor collector to come and give an overview of the process and all the different exemptions. And then you definitely have an expert there that we could pick his brain and answer all those questions.
So would that best be suited as like a workshop as opposed to an official meeting?
Certainly, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
and just so I'm clear, on a workshop, there's no action to be taken on anything. It's just a discussion, education.
Discussion, information being presented.
Okay, so it's not considered, it's still a public meeting,
It's not a
but
meeting.
it's not,
It's a workshop, it's not a meeting.
okay, I just want to make sure.
No minutes,
Like-
it's a workshop, no minutes,
No minutes?
no lawyer, it's a workshop.
Okay, maybe that would be best,
Like the one
Mr.
going
Mayor,
on
to
the
have a
well,
workshop.
There should be minutes, but the minutes can be as simple as Mr. Gutierrez presented on tax assessors.
Got it.
and,
What,
you know,
what I'm
something
getting
like
at here, I don't want to leave an item hanging that we have to keep rescheduling to another.
Well, like I said, I think someone could make a motion to invite Mr. Gutierrez and have the mayor set that up as soon as possible on a workshop. It could be done at a meeting, regular meeting, but we know that we're very time constrained, so something like that would probably at least take an hour, I would assume, to at least go through a presentation, Q&A, so.
And they need to know that we don't have Wi-Fi here too.
I'd like to make a motion that the mayor invite Mr. Gutierrez from Mr. Uresti's office to come participate in a workshop with the city council to discuss property tax exemptions.
Have a motion on the floor from,
I'll second that
Ms. Ball.
if you add to it that it's whenever, that we replace this on an agenda when he's available. Don't just make it to where it has to be the next meeting or whatever.
No. We want to have a workshop, not a
have a
meeting,
workshop.
for him to come out and talk to
Oh,
us
okay.
and
You're
counsel us
You're talking a
on.
workshop, not
Yes.
having him in a meeting, okay.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I'll second that for a workshop. yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Ms. Ball, seconded by Mr. Gay, to invite Mr. Gutierrez to a workshop. I didn't hear anything in the motion as to a proposed date, or we leave that open.
We'll find out when he's available.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
recommend you find out when he's
Okay.
available.
Okay. Okay, the motion from Ms. Ball is to invite Mr. Gutierrez to a workshop that can be scheduled on, as it fits into his time schedule. Do we require notification that the city council will be coming together?
Right, at a workshop, yeah, it has to be posted.
Same
Same
time
rules.
frame.
Yeah.
Right, the minutes should be taken, even if it's a simple notation that it was just a presentation.
Okay. Okay.
So this item on the agenda also becomes unfinished business, yes? 'Cause-
Well, you took action, you made
Okay.
however you want to interpret it, but.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can always bring this back up again when we get the
Right.
information
Correct.
from him and from the tax assessor collector's office.
Absolutely, and I'll let you finish voting, but I'll make another suggestion.
Okay. On the motion on the floor, all those in favor? Unanimous?
My only suggestion is that leading up to the budget process, you put together a calendar and just release it on the website so the public knows, okay, we're going to have a couple, you're required to only have one public hearing. I typically recommend you have 2 or 3 public workshops and so my recommendation is simply put together a calendar of events and deadlines that are going to lead up to the formation of the budget and the decision on the tax rate. So everybody knows what's gonna happen. And
So
remind me what-
workshops, public hearings,
Right, and the specific
budget
deadline.
planning. Okay. Or budget workshops. And a deadline for when
When the
a
various-
decision will be made.
various decisions need to occur.
Okay.
Okay. Could we consider this a modification of the motion we just passed, or?
Yeah, that was just a recommendation.
Okay,
I think
Yeah.
it's just good
recommendation,
practice.
okay,
Give everybody foreknowledge of how that's gonna happen.
okay. And that was a unanimous vote. Okay, item number 6 on the agenda. Discuss and consider an agreement for tax assessment and collection services to be assessed and collected by the Bear County Tax Assessor Collector for the city of Sandy Oaks for the 9-month period from October 1st, 2015 and expiring June 30th, 2016. Everybody was handed out a copy of that agreement. Once it's agreed upon, passed by the city council here, it goes back to the tax assessor collector. They put their signatures on it, and it has to go to the district attorney for their approval on it before,
So is this a standard agreement?
It is.
yes,
Yeah,
So
the-
from the county?
yes, from the county.
Okay.
So if the city does not enter into it, then the city is responsible for its own assessment
And collection?
and collection. You'd have to do your own valuation. It would be very
We
cost
don't
prohibitive.
want to get involved in that.
I don't know of any entity, I don't know of any entity that does it itself in Bear County. So.
I didn't see anything in here about the cost to do this.
There is a cost, it's relatively small. I'd have to review it to see the percentage, but it's typically paid out of.
Did you see it?
When the county collects taxes, they typically withhold it from what they provide to the city. So it's kind of it's not that they invoice you and you pay it, they actually withhold it from the tax.
Do they normally just last a year at a time?
Yeah, that June date is interesting.
Yeah.
New contract on 1 July.
That
Well, it
usually,
sauld it automatically renews, but I'm just curious about that
That-
June date.
that June date would equate to when taxes become delinquent and the law firm, if that's the way you go, will go and collect the back taxes.
But if we sign the agreement with the county, then they would engage
on page
the
3.
collection.
No,
Yeah, I saw
Page
that.
3,
Yeah.
it doesn't really say an amount, but it's set by the Texas tax code.
It does say will not exceed the amount collected.
Right.
It's awfully nice of them.
Well, that's good to know.
That's big of them, isn't it?
I'm fairly certain the county, they probably have a standard fee for everyone, which I don't have in front of me, so we'd have to call and find out exactly what it is. I know from my experience in the past, it had always been I don't want to overstate.
Well, if you don't know, you don't know.
No, it was a few $1,000s. It wasn't, you know.
A year?
Yeah, with 100,000 in collection, it was probably like 2% or something like that. But to get a firm number, we need to call and confirm it.
So there's a fee for just the pass-through collection. People get their bill, they pay it.
Right,
But then if it goes to collection, then we're gonna get a reduced amount because
No.
there's other fees associated with that?
no, that's a different process. So this is a fee for them to actually do the assessment. They mail you of the fee of the bill, I guess receiving of the payments, handling the disputes, and all of that. If someone is delinquent in their payment, typically the city will contract with a law firm that does collections. And in every one of those that I've seen, the cost for that is actually assessed to
Passed on to
the
the-
delinquent
It's
taxpayer
added to it,
in
yeah.
the form of fees. And so
Right.
the city receives 100% of what was actually assessed.
Well, I read in there that it said the county will not exert any more effort than it normally would to collect county taxes. So I'm assuming they're gonna, any taxes, whether it be county or city taxes, they would, because it came out on a single bill.
Right, yeah, they all come on one single bill, and when you
Right.
pay, you can't say, I wanna pay the school tax, but not the city
Got it.
tax. It's all applied proportionally,
Right.
even if they only make a partial payment.
So if an individual doesn't pay their taxes and it goes ends up on the courthouse steps for auction and the county sells their property for whatever amount, just like a bankruptcy where debts are settled before anything, we would get our money if there's enough money to pay all the, I'm sure Bear County's gonna take their piece first.
No, it's done
It's
proportionally.
yeah.
Proportion.
So let's say only
Everybody would
50%
get a
is
piece.
collected, everybody gets 50%, even the smaller jurisdictions. And every taxing jurisdiction in that scenario is represented by a private law firm. To be very frank, there's law firms that kind of dominate everything in Bear County. It just makes sense to have one law firm handle everyone on the tax bill. Otherwise, there's 2 or 3 lawyers. But again, so it's much more efficient to hire an outside law firm just for that purpose. It's already structured for that. Otherwise, the city attorney would be the one that would have to go do the collections, and it would be cost prohibitive again.
That Lindenberger or Lineberger or whatever, they're the ones used by the county.
They are, in most taxing jurisdictions, Bear County use them,
Yeah.
just because.
Okay.
Didn't we already agree to use those on this council?
No, we did not.
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think so.
They
I
sent a
thought it was brought
package,
up.
but
It
we
was,
did
it
not.
was brought up, but I don't think we.
We did
I
not
don't
put it on
think
an
we
agenda.
voted
You
on it.
handed out
Yeah,
packages
it
and we
was
never
just-
discussed it.
Okay.
Yeah, and while most units you don't have to, but
Right.
that's a different discussion
So
on the agenda. But yeah, that's a component that would also have to be put in place.
So what would be, if the county is going to work the collection side of it, why would what's the benefit to the city to engage that law firm or another law firm or the city attorney to go after delinquent taxes if everything's going to be proportional on what's collected?
Well, because they're not going to, if a delinquent taxpayer has to be sued, the attorney representing the other districts aren't going to sue on behalf of the city of San Diego to collect, because they don't represent the city. So at that point, the city would miss out on the collections. So when we talk about the county tax assessor collector, their services end with the normal collection process, which is you have to pay, I want to do a payment plan. When it gets into delinquency, then it's the responsibility of the taxing entity, in this case the city, to retain an attorney to collect. So you hire that outside firm, and then, like I said, without trying to endorse the Linebarger law firm, but most entities lined up so that everyone's hiring the same attorney. And it's a simpler matter also for the delinquent taxpayer. You'd also don't want them dealing with 2 or 3 lawyers and all of that.
I mean, I read this to say that, I mean, it says that the tax assessor collector will not expend any greater effort
Right.
than what they would to collect the county taxes.
Right.
So if they're gonna take it to court, we're party
Right.
to it.
And
I see it.
what we're
We don't-
talking
We
about-
don't need to go out and hire.
Right, and what we're talking
legal
about is
representation.
over and above this agreement, so.
I don't think that there would be any cases over and above this. If the county takes them to court and.
Well, the county can take them to court and sue for the county
Or
taxes,
the
but
counties.
if the city's not a named party, then that person isn't being sued for the city portion of the tax.
So they're only gonna collect what part of the county? The hospital district, the ESD, the schools, which one?
Whoever's retained that attorney or that law firm that's filing the suit. So,
I think the
which
question is
oh,
pertaining to
oh,
that
this one?
agreement,
Okay.
who
On
are
this-
they gonna try to collect?
Right. Again, I would have to, I mean, that question should be directed to the tax assessor collector, but from what I've seen, it typically ends with sending delinquent notices, and that once it gets to the point where it needs to go to a lawsuit, then the collection attorney steps in.
Again, I just don't think, I think that it's the county will expend and collect, they will expend in collecting the county taxes for the same property in the same period.
Right.
I just believe that we will be party to anything. If they're going after their county taxes, they're collecting all the taxes. I just don't think
Right.
I don't think we're gonna have to cross that bridge. I just don't think so.
But I think that's separate from what the agenda item
It
is.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, can I have mine?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Well, I know that we don't know what the fee is. That's an unknown.
What, is that something you can just check online for, or is it?
I can try to see if it's online.
It probably has to do with the amount of money they collect.
A
It's
percentage?
percentage.
That's what I'm
I mean,
thinking.
and it falls in line with what the Texas.
I'm just surprised it's not lined out in the agreement.
As a
It's
percentage.
probably because it allows Commissioners Court to adjust it without having to reissue contracts. So the cost,
Hmm.
They have a monopoly on it, so.
Well, I think that the issue for the purpose of the agenda is, it makes sense that we enter into this agreement because we're not going to be able to
No,
bill,
we can't
collect,
do it ourselves.
assess, no, we're not, we just can't do that.
You wouldn't want to pay the price to have to do it yourself anyway.
We can't do it.
It's expensive. Yeah.
Right. So then I'd like to make a motion that we accept this agreement as written as a standard agreement for the terms identified of October 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2016. And what does it say here? It's an auto renewal unless someone notifies. All right?
yep. Okay, Ms. Ball has a motion on the floor. Could you
Say that again?
say that again?
It's
I
on
don't
tape.
know if I can do that.
It's on tape.
I know it's on tape, but I want to make sure that everybody understood what she said.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the standard agreement as written for the terms identified in the contract beginning October 1st, 2015.
Any, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay,
Is that
Miss-
Joel?
Who seconded that?
Joel.
Mr. Ortega, second. Okay, we have the motion from Ms. Ball, seconded by Mr. Ortega. If there be no more discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Item 7 on the agenda, discuss and consider an ordinance for the creation of the position for Public Information Officer, an ordinance establishing the City Office of Public Information Officer, procedures for appointment, tenure, compensation, duties, providing for serviceability, severability. I played with that one for a while. For severability, and providing other details relating to the passage of this ordinance. This was presented by Alderman Tremblay and Ball. Mr. Tremblay, could you...
Just with some of the past requests we've had for some information, it seems we don't have a person responsible for doing these duties. I myself would like to incorporate this. I'm not real sure how all of the women involved and others, but I would like to see these duties incorporated into the city clerk position. Because the city clerk has all the information, has all the documents that are required. As far as the tenure and compensation, I mean, those would have to, this would be an additional duty per se, job duty. Again, we need to create a job description that actually details what what the duties
Right.
are as a city clerk and the public information officer, just kind of incorporate that into the same job description.
Right, and I just think it's so important that this position be established, and whoever is appointed is very well versed in what the legal requirements are. But also for us to put out to the public how to do that, how to make a public information request.
One of the things, I wasn't aware of this, but the TML actually has a municipal information officer association with their own training and certification. So when I was researching the ordinance, so that also may be something that the council can consider in the future. If that's going to be the city clerk or whoever you want to assign that to, you may want to have them go through that course and be trained in that.
Well, because I think of the importance of this being established, fairly, quickly, I would ask our city clerk if this is something that she'll be comfortable performing at this time, because we do need to tackle this right away.
Sure.
If not, then we definitely we need to find
Somebody who
can
can, yeah.
perform these duties, not to put her in a spot for a position
Right.
in a public forum, but I would just ask that. And if she is not comfortable in doing these duties, please let the mayor know. But I really think this is something that we need to get done like ASAP.
Can I ask on section 4 here where it says term of public information officer, it says the public information officer shall serve for such a term that the mayor may desire. We have to get council approval for appointment, but should we not have council approval for removal as well?
You'll see most of the ordinances are phrased that way. There's two ways of removal. One, the mayor can remove by eliminating the term, and then there should be a section there for removal by the council for cause.
Got it, okay.
So the council can remove them, but it requires a 2/3 vote. Again, the council's free to adopt whatever it wishes. Typically, we try to find like a balance, have a balance of power where the mayor operates the city in between council meetings and technically should be comfortable with everyone he's working with. So that's why we have mayor nominate, the council approves, it forces compromise, but if the mayor loses confidence in someone, that provision allows him to create a vacancy, and then it goes back to the process where the council and the mayor get to select any party. That's the rationale behind it. So if the mayor wants somebody that the council doesn't like, the council has a way of removing them. If there's someone gets in place that the mayor doesn't like, then maybe the council won't remove. He's got a way of doing it. The goal being good operation. So either side needs to. You can't have one side forcing the other side to have a person that they don't want.
So basically, this ordinance is just establishing the position. It's not selecting a candidate. That would be a future item.
Correct. Correct. And then it's drafted differently because of the way the agenda was put
Now,
out.
if we do decide, if we agree that this should be part of the city clerk's duties, we no longer need the ordinance.
Correct.
We just rewrite the clerk's
We
job
could-
duties.
We could amend the clerk's job duties. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I would,
That's what I'm.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I would suggest then, Ms. Ball had, on the website, we have a telephone number that we more than likely need to activate that somehow or another.
Well, it is
because,
activated. But and I need to get with each of the other council members because I can add additional phones and phone numbers, so that everybody gets those calls.
Yeah,
It requires a verification code that you'll get, but then at least you'll get, instead of me having to forward everything to you, you get it just like I do.
Yeah, because the reason I say that is right now, Charlotte is using her personal cell phone and house phone for everything, and
She's not getting paid.
well,
Okay.
Well, and I know.
When it goes out to everybody, we need to know who's gonna answer it. I don't want everybody sending out answers.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think it makes sense that you be the point person on that, and then if you need to refer it to somebody else,
Okay,
just
yeah.
to let everybody know, yeah. Because it comes in as an actual voicemail, and a transcribed text message of whatever it was that was sent. Depending on the accent, the transcription is pretty bad. But I always try to put the link to the actual message so you can hear it as well.
Now, the only other thing to consider is that the public information officer is also the person who, if there was an incident or in the city, say a natural disaster or something, that the media would go to for questions. And so that person needs to be trained because there's certain information that shouldn't be given out, like the names of victims of an incident and things like that. So
The emergency management plan also addresses that.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
public information officer is an important part of the.
Gotta get that signed.
Yes, you do.
And so it could be two different individuals. So if we want the clerk to handle public information requests and things like that nature, but if there may be somebody else who wants to handle sensitive issues on TV with being questions,
It's the lawyer.
just something to consider in the future.
It's
that,
the lawyer.
You know, when those things happen, they're unexpected and need to be thought out beforehand.
Okay, you want to make the motion?
So I would make a motion that the public information officer duties be incorporated into the city clerk position, thereby eliminating the need for this ordinance.
But I think there's also an amend the ordinance for the city
Well,
clerk. Yes?
Well, no, I think we just need to add the job duty, the duties. I don't think, because we've already established the city clerk
Yeah.
Right.
position.
But that's what I meant, amend.
There are no job duties,
Oh,
really.
okay.
We don't have a job description per se for the city clerk.
We do in the
An
ordinance.
official job description.
In the ordinance, it does list our duties, and they mimic the statute. What the statute says are the
And
duties.
we'll need to amend that ordinance for the city clerk position to include public information officer duties.
Again, I think the way, I hate to say this, but the way the agenda is drafted, it's discussed, considered an ordinance for the creation of the position of the public information officer.
Right.
So
We'd
what you
have to
could do
put-
is make a motion to instruct the attorney to incorporate them, but I think we'd have to vote on it at a subsequent meeting.
Right.
But you could also put adoption of the amended and assignment of the duties on that agenda. And there's nothing wrong with to formulate it in the ordinance, we'll have to do it at a future meeting. But the city clerk ordinance as currently in place also says, and any other duty assigned by the council.
True.
So the council could assign her that duty in the interim, and then when we get to the next meeting and we formalize it all in the ordinance, then it could be formalized, which I still recommend you do because future councils may not remember this conversation, so you do want to get it into the ordinance. But you could assign her that duty temporarily and then instruct the attorney to amend the ordinance and bring it back at the next meeting for adoption. Does that make
You
We're
got
not
that?
approving this.
Well, we're approving
Or-
creating the position.
Or you could adopt the ordinance that we have presented, creating the position, and then appoint the city clerk to hold both positions. But the way it's
But
phrased here,
in a future meeting.
In a
Right
future-
now, it's this, future meeting is incorporating. Does that make sense?
I think we need a future meeting regardless to do this, to amend the ordinance.
I think our future agenda is going to have to be a little bit more expanded. We're going to have to take into account some of these things.
But even the way the ordinance was, even the mayor could assign her a duty. So
Right.
even if we just say, have the attorney bring back the city clerk ordinance with these duties amended to it for the next meeting, there's nothing that prohibits the mayor from assigning those duties temporarily to the city clerk so that it can be in effect. But the way it's phrased now, the only thing you can do is adopt or decline the ordinance establishing the public information officer.
Okay.
Or you can take no action and just bring it back. In the future, we could also draft our agenda items a little bit more open.
Yeah.
So we have a little more flexibility.
Yeah.
But we can't have somebody doing that job if the mayor will instruct.
The mayor can instruct the city clerk after the meeting, until we have something in place,
But
which
you'll
will
say
serve
no
as
action on this agenda item.
Well, why would we do no action? Why would we
Yeah.
not?
I
We're
thought we-
establishing the office of public information
It's
officer.
not an additional office. It won't be an additional.
just an additional
office.
duty.
It'll be additional duty.
Got it. Okay.
But that still is an
confusing.
action.
So it'll be a future action. It's no action on this.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Does anybody have a suggestion on to when we should bring this back? Because I'll bring it back at the next meeting.
I think next regular meeting.
Okay.
We instruct the attorney to modify to the clerk's position as the public information officer duties.
Okay. Okay, so there's no action on this item, and we need to have an item brought back by the attorney to add this to the existing list of duties for the city clerk. Okay. Okay, was that a motion?
No.
No action on this.
No action.
We just have an action.
Okay.
That's present.
That's right. I got it written down there, no action. Okay, item 9. We're at- okay.
I believe we're on 8.
We're on number 8.
Okay, 8, discuss and consider an ordinance for the creation of the position of code enforcement. An ordinance establishing the city office of code enforcement officer, procedures for appointment, tenure, compensation, duties, providing for severability, and providing other details relating to the passage of this ordinance. Mr. Tremblay and Ms. Ball.
Yeah, I don't like the way this one is written. Section 3, Mr. Mayor, that was the whole intent, was to keep it separate from the marshal, because we don't have a marshal position, but there's things we can do based on codes and ordinances that we've implemented, that somebody could go out and say, secure your animal. I mean, because we're going to do the animal workshop on Saturday.
Right.
That was the whole intent of this, so I don't like that this is tied to the marshal's office in any way.
Well, that could just be stricken. I mean, we can amend this since it's on the agenda. We can strike that. Or,
Okay.
Yeah, I actually looked at part of the requirements under Texas statute
Mhm.
rules as far as the code enforcement officer. And normally the appointment is done by the city marshal. So it's just something that we need to
Okay.
consider as far as who this individual will be responsible to. My first thought was that we could get volunteers to do this as part of a cleanup effort and such, but when you start looking at code enforcement, you're dealing with building codes and restrictions, so they need some knowledge in engineering processes
Right.
as well, some plumbing and electrical stuff. So it's not as easy as just having somebody drive around the neighborhood and see who's got trash in their front yard.
Mhm.
Although, we could possibly, we might be able to do something like that on a temporary or part-time basis, but as far as and I don't see this being a 40-hour-a-week position either. If we adopt this ordinance as written, and I don't know the legal ramifications, if we were able to appoint a person or hire a person, however we look at this, on a temporary basis, say 8 to 10 hours a week, to do the public cleanup effort, and not so much the building stuff. Would we be able to do that legally? Would we be able to appoint someone who is not state certified? Because the requirement also, there is some certification required. So there's some requirements as far as you must have a high school diploma, or GED, a couple hours of college, and associate's degree. It's nice to have as well. So there's some things we need to look at. It's not cut and dry.
right. You're absolutely right. It also depends on what specifically we're doing. One, we need to have, in order to be a law enforcement agency, we have to be registered and have our numbers assigned by the state.
But we've made no traction on that.
Okay. I know we had a volunteer marshal who was supposed to be working on that.
He's waiting on a call from the mayor.
So before we start doing certain type of enforcement, we have to have all that in place. We have to have our insurance in place from the T-mail to make sure that they're insured. And then we also have to have a means of enforcing it with regard to having a municipal court. So we have to have a judge who can actually assess a fine and do all of that if someone is not going to be compliant. So, and that's fairly easy to get set up and utilize the building just like this for that. What could be done in the interim, so that's what needs to be done for it to be a fully functional, what we normally probably are thinking of as a code enforcement. What you can do in the interim is send letters, that's even administrative. So we could have folks, if you identify a code violation, we can send out letters.
Exactly what they do in the city of San Antonio.
Right, so you get a letter from the
You get a letter
clerk.
from them first, if you're not in compliance, you have 10 days to correct it.
But-
But most of the time, people will take
Exactly.
care of it after they do that. What stops us to putting that in place?
Nothing, that's what I'm saying. Right now, just note that what you're doing is, you can provide notice from the clerk, even have, but then it doesn't have much teeth. In other words, if somebody says, I'm not gonna cut my grass until we get those other structures up, the agency number and the court, which I think we could have it fairly quickly, then there's not much you could do after that, other than sue. There is a provision in the government code of the city could sue in the county court for enforcement of an ordinance. Again, that's usually cost prohibitive, but if there is a significant threat to public safety, that can be done. And so we could start with the general note, and that might not necessarily be a bad idea, because we're transitioning from no city to city. So sometimes having a gentle intermediary period where people are getting notices and being aware, okay, now we got to start doing this kind of stuff, versus getting a ticket immediately. I know when we've set this up in Army, for example, we did that. We did a grace period of I think it was 3 months or 6 months or whatever. But all we were doing was nice notices and things like that, and then getting people aware that it's coming. If you don't start conforming and doing that, it's in 3 months or so we're going to start issuing warnings and citations. So you don't necessarily have to wait till everything's in place, but be cautious that we're not going to be able to write a citation or anything like that until all of those structures are in place. So
As far as creating this position for code enforcement officer and doing it the right way as far as what the requirements are, as far as what the state says, I think keeping it as, or doing it as such, putting this under the marshal position as far as he would do the hiring, firing, the appointment. And if we saw cause for removal as council, we could do that, but I think it should be the marshal's responsibility to fill this position.
Well, I noticed in here, the original one that I had written talked about a bond, and I don't see anything on requiring a bond here. Is that by statute, or is that,
by statute, they're required to have a bond,
no,
being peace officers.
but what I'm saying is in this ordinance, there's nothing mentioning a bond.
No.
So they do or do not need a bond?
They need a bond by statute. And again, all that goes in place when we get the licensing and all of it. We could most certainly put it back in to be explicit.
But we would need a bond to go farther in the process anyway, wouldn't we? Like you're saying.
To go beyond simply the letter saying you're out of compliance, would you please voluntarily comply? Yes. And those letters can come from the clerk, for example. So, we could even have a volunteer compliance officer, but rather than engaging people, they might simply make note of it and then have the clerk issue a letter that simply says, you're in violation of this ordinance or this regulation. Please conform within so many days. You don't have to advertise. We don't have a court or anything, but you can do a nice gentle letter. You're out of compliance. And then note again, if something is also a violation of state law, and we have very few ordinances that are separate from state. We typically just adopted state law, and we believe it does present a significant danger. Then then the officer can report, like any citizen, to the sheriff, and have the sheriff come in and handle it. So if we see, caustic chemicals or somebody dumping oil in the creek or something like that, those can be done by bringing in the sheriff, who's still our primary law enforcement in the city. And I'm sure sympathetic to our situation that we're not quite where we can do those things ourselves. So there's a benefit to having someone do that, but we want to be cautious not to be even a quasi policing entity until we have our license from the state to operate as a law enforcement office. And the other thing also to note, the ordinance that I prepared requires the code compliance officer or the code enforcement officer to be a licensed peace officer. They technically don't have to. So that's really up to the council what bar you want to have. But if they are a licensed peace officer, it tends to answer a lot of the other contingency issues that have when you have a non-officer as far as certification and things like that, because the officers can enforce city ordinance. So if we can find a volunteer who is a peace officer, that makes it a little bit easier. But when we get down to building inspection and health and safety, health inspectors, those are often under the marshal's office as a separate non-officer inspector, and they themselves don't have any police powers than our officers, so often the marshal will go with them, or if they find a violation or code, they need to write a citation. Though they can write their own citations, sometimes the marshals will do it. So yeah, that needs to be coordinated with the marshal's office on how they want to handle those scenarios.
Okay. We could do this, seeing as how we want to bring this in under the marshal, that at this time we could call this a no action item until we.
I think we can approve it.
Yeah, why not?
Creating the position.
You really want to?
I think we should.
Oh, we can,
Yes. I
yeah,
think
we can
should
approve the
create-
positions, but.
We can still always place it under
And we
the
can-
heading of the marshal too.
Sure. And until we have a marshal,
Okay.
to not having
Okay.
court enforcement and an officer per se.
It's,
You don't have
okay.
the person,
We-
you just have the position.
The position.
Just
is
the
valid.
position, so all of the items
And we
and
can
so
amend
forth.
any part of
Yeah.
it later as far as.
Right.
whatever. So I would make a motion that we accept this, or pass this ordinance for creating the position of court enforcement officer. That's a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Tremblay to accept this agenda item to create the office of Code Enforcement Officer. Is any second to that?
I'll second.
Ms. Baum, seconded. Are there any other discussions on this? All those in favor? Unanimous? Okay, item number 9. This should take about 2 seconds. Discuss and consider a resolution to establish a post office box for the city business. A resolution of the city of San Antonio, jeez. Resolution of the city of Sandy Oaks, Texas, approving the use of a P.O. box as the official mailing address for the city for the delivery of mail.
Yeah, I'd like to talk on that just a couple minutes
Sure.
real quick. This came up for a couple of reasons. The most urgent one that we have is related to the state comptroller's office. I've spoken to them, and they're very reluctant to put the mayor's home address as the official business. So that's probably the most critical. I have to get back with them on Monday with the official address. So we need to get this one resolved quickly. The other thing is we need a secure place to receive mail on behalf of the city, and a mailbox sitting out on the street is not considered very secure. And it just makes better business sense. I get a lot of calls from people wanting to know what is our address, and so I do care of the mayor's address. So I just think it's kind of a no-brainer on this one to establish a P.O. box for city business.
I agree.
Along that same note, I think Mickey and I were probably following in each other's footsteps on this one.
We were,
But I did speak to the, if you want to call him the station
postmaster,
Postmaster
Postmaster.
at 78112.
yes.
And he also put us in touch with some other people. I think we were calling behind one another, talking to the same individual. But I know there's some concern to folks who live out here as far as putting Sandy Oaks on their mail, on their official mail, or changing their driver's license or what have you. Post office does not recognize Sandy Oaks. Our zip code 78112 is Elmendorf. It's the post office there. There is no way to give us another zip code per se. Everybody's got a 4-digit
Plus for you.
That's just like little zonal areas within the zip code. But as far as being recognized, so the post office knows who we are, where we are, what needs to be done in this, we really couldn't do this until we had an official PO box or mailing address for the city. But a letter needs to be sent to the station manager there at that post office, if you'll call him, he's the postmaster there, as well as maybe we suggested doing CCing the carrier so that the carrier knows, and if we can give them that letter stating that we are the city of Sandy Oaks, with a printout of the addresses within the city, and everybody will get their mail, and then you can start with the changing your addresses
Was there
and your official
was
mail.
that one of the requests? I can't remember if they said that they wanted the addresses.
Yes, they wanted
They do
that.
want the
In
addresses.
addition to the letter,
Okay.
we can give them just a printout of the addresses.
And I,
Here in the city, because it'll cut off, it cuts off at certain
Right.
parts of the road, and this side of the road isn't Sandy Oaks and that side.
yeah, and the gentleman that I talked to, he says, well, you know, because that zip code is that post office, you can't change it to
Right.
Sandy Oaks. But so I asked him specifically about like Alamo Heights. You know, you can address it to Alamo Heights or you can address it to San Antonio. It still gets there. And that's when he said, you know, just we need a letter from the city indicating that, you know, we are within that area and they will establish it. It's
Yeah,
And
that's
then
time
as
for
well,
this.
as soon as we get the PO box, then we can very easy just to take our city logo and put it on the top of the letter
Right.
and create a template for city official mail, official letters, notices, what have you, that we need to put out. That should be pretty easy to do. So
Right.
if we can do that in addition to the PO box, generating that letter, I don't know if we can add that onto this agenda item,
But I think the mayor can just do that on his own.
but that's
Or making a request.
okay.
I would actually caution that y'all at least get a large enough box to
Yes.
handle
Yes,
stuff that
Yes.
somebody
Exact-
doesn't have to make a daily trip
Right.
down there, you know.
I go once a month.
And so then in addition to this, should we authorize the clerk of the mayor to make payment for this PO box?
When you establish it, the payment has to be made at that
Yeah, the
time.
resolution allows the
They're not
mayor.
gonna give it to you until you pay for it.
Yeah.
Right.
The resolution allows the mayor to sign the contract, there's usually a contract, and the clerk to make whatever fee necessary. And then obviously the box number is blank,
Right.
so when you make your motion, you may also want to allow the mayor or the clerk to pick a number and fill that into the resolution. If they're friendly, they'll give you something easy to remember, like 100.
Well, and also around your concern on the size of the box, that post office also has oversized boxes. So if you get something that doesn't fit in your box, they put a key in your box. And it allows you just to open that storage box, but you can't get the key back out. So they have to release it. So there's other ways of doing that as well.
Airport storage boxes.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like a locker.
Like a locker.
Okay, well, that was, got a little bit more discussion than I thought it was going to get, but it's a necessary item. My personal mailbox does get full, and I would rather have the mail coming some other way.
Right.
So we
Well,
have,
motion, do we approve the resolution to establish PO box? for the city
I'll
of
second that one.
And that needs to be something that happens tomorrow, or Monday, sorry, because we've got to get information back to the state comptroller's office.
Okay. Okay.
Who needs to do it then? I guess we get somebody.
He's going to sign the contract,
Okay.
and I don't know
So
what
you get the
Charlotte.
contract from the, I gotta go get the contract from the post office?
You
do
can
it
go
right
up
there.
there.
You can
It's
do it
not a
there.
big deal.
Yeah, I know, but I gotta get the contract first and then,
I think you can both go to get, somebody with a checkbook
okay. Okay.
needs
Okay,
to
we're
go
gonna
along.
Right.
Yeah,
Together Monday.
And I'll check for part 2 signatures anyways.
right. And I think they issue 2 keys. I got 2 keys.
Okay, we've got the motion on the floor from Mr. Tremblay, seconded by Mr. Gay, to establish the or make a resolution to establish a post office box for our city business. And is there any further discussion on that item? If not, all those in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Item number 10, discuss a meeting with VIA officials to plan for services to the city of Sandy Oaks. Alderman Tremblay and Ball.
Mr. Tremblay and I met with the VIA office. Unfortunately, Mr. Gonzalez was not there, but we did meet with his community liaison manager, Stephanie Suarez, and pretty much talked about what we would like to see happen, what they could bring to the city as far as services. I've had another bit of news that's kind of come about as a result of this. In talking with the state comptroller, because we put on the ballot in November an initiative to discontinue VIA, the tax for VIA, that cannot come back up on an agenda for removal for 5 years. So, I mean, it makes sense if you think about it, because that VIA has to plan for, yeah, so that kind of makes sense. So the fact that we are now committed for at least 5 years, there was some good information that we shared back and forth with Ms. Suarez. One of the things was around trying to identify a route. We're not looking for them to service all streets in the city. We're thinking right at the front. They're going to check into the area that right-of-way in front of Valero would be an ideal place to put a bus stop. It's an easy on, easy off type scenario for the bus service. They would install a shelter there. We could use it for posting notices, you know, so they're very agreeable to that. We also asked about a mail out. VIA would be willing to do a mail out to all residents to kind of let them know what's going on, get their input. That way there's no cost to the city to do that. Ms. Suarez went on vacation, spring break vacation, the week after we met, so I have not had a chance to get back with her on kind of how things went. She was going to present this to Mr. Gonzalez and their team. Did you have anything else you wanted?
Said I think we want to try and get her on the April.
Yes, yes, she has been invited to attend the April 9th meeting.
To the council, but yeah, in their mail out, it's basically a survey type mail out with people who are interested, and yeah, surely they get 100% no, and it'll be in English and Spanish.
And something she did share that was very interesting is that there is a plan underway to put in place a large transit center at City Base. And basically what we talked to her about was, you know, a way for our residents to be able to get into the system, really is what we're looking for. So with that transit system that's going in out there, which is supposed to be state-of-the-art, large.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the largest transit center
For
public
VIA?
transportation in the city of San Antonio will be in Brooks.
And I think that was a
So
2-year.
if we get connectivity to the city of San Antonio, they could get down there and go to the medical center or go anywhere they
Right.
need to go. But I think in the survey somehow they're going to try and grab some information as far as what times would be beneficial, weekends, we'll do have different schedules. So I think that's all something that they would do. And even once the whole process is say, bought off on as far as or putting the service out here, a more informative type session would be, they would come out and do a more informative type session for the public to
Right.
explain services.
Right.
So that's basically.
It's probably gonna take a lot of participation from the public in contacting VIA, because VIA has like a 15 or 20-year plan, and we're not in it. So for them to change their mind, the public's really gonna have to,
Well, I think what,
Change their mind as far as I understand.
well, they have.
including us in the plan.
Yeah, because they're, well, I don't know, they call it like a corridor plan, or I can't remember the exact title, but we're not included in what they want to do so far.
Well, we will be if.
We will be.
If they send out the survey and they get
Yes.
positive feedback.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's
Yeah.
gonna take a lot
Surely,
of,
that's
gonna take a lot of-
that's what we're going after.
Well, and I think
The
she
whole
was quite
purpose is-
surprised at just the size of our community, the number of residents out here. I don't think they've been out here, have not really investigated. We talked to her also about not just our city, but as another incentive to get them out here, is the whole 1604-37 corridor. You have a lot of people working in that area, or, you've got people who come in, maybe they want to go into the city. Truck drivers over at the Pilot, if they could hop on a bus and go to the grocery store, that would be,
yeah, if VIA will send their service anywhere where there's people, they just have to know that.
Right, they just have to know that. And I think the issue was no one had really communicated those things to them, or actually asked. I mean, I
I'm
know that.
sorry, Miss Rabe and myself sat down with Charlie Gonzalez and his boss, and they offered none of the things that you're talking. They wanted us to do all the legwork, and I brought it to this council in a meeting, and nothing transpired. I did find one person that said they needed VIA assistance, but I'm glad that all these items have come up. This really opens things up.
Well,
And as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with Charlie Gonzalez here not long ago. He was still talking the same thing. So I'm glad you got somebody that's underneath Charlie that had the foresight to discuss some issues. And I like the idea of formulating the route through the city and possibly an area right outside, close to the Valero.
Well,
for pickup and so forth.
one thing she mentioned was that they will not pay to purchase any right-of-way. It's a mutual thing. They're going to ask for it. Whoever has that's going to say yay or nay. That right-of-way, if I'm not mistaken, is TxDOT. So it shouldn't be an issue. I don't know, I don't think. So there's more coming on that, and she will be attending our April 9th meeting.
Good.
Maybe the fact that we put it on the ballot got their attention. To take a,
Well, the issue has been that some people wanted it to go away because we're paying the tax, we're not getting anything. And my position has always been, if we have predominantly low and middle income people, they could benefit from something like this. So rather than say, we're not paying you any more money for this, why not, if we're paying it, let's try to get something for it. And maybe it's just a matter of engaging different people. David and I had not spoken with them before, she'd not spoken with us, some fresh eyes on the subject, so.
We'll get some kids off the street sometime too, if I get some jobs down the road.
That's what we're thinking. Well, especially for the summer, for the kids to be able to go to the movies, or if they've got jobs, or whatever, so.
So that was our.
Going to city
We'll
base
keep
is all that
council informed, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get Stephanie or some representative out here for the April 9th meeting, and should that happen, we'll get it on the agenda.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your efforts to do that. I'm glad that there's some movement. And the reason before that we tried to get rid of it was because we had been a number of times in the past, and to make a long story short, they thumbed their nose at us. And that didn't go well. So, but this is more encouraging. Is there any more discussion on this item?
Almost done.
No more discussion on this item. We'll go to item number 11. Discuss and consider an update on road signage identifying the city of Sandy Oaks. I take it that's out on the highway? And
Right,
the
I
big signage?
made some contacts with TxDOT, spoke to a lady named Dee Smith. We had a discussion about getting some signage out on the highway as well as out on 1604. She asked me to send her a request via email along with a map of showing the boundaries of the city, which I did. I got an update from her a few days ago that she was questioning that our boundaries weren't hitting 1604, and were they correct? And I said, yes, they were, but we would surely appreciate a sign somewhere out there just indicating the direction of our city, not so much the boundaries. And she sent back an acknowledgement on that they were going to send an engineer out to look and survey the area. But as far as I can tell at this point, they will do that for us. So I'll keep you informed of the progress.
You didn't want to include signage like where you're entering our city?
I think what we're looking at is on the highway.
On the
as
highway.
far as the exit, when you're coming up on exit 122, it'll say exit 122 Sandy Oaks.
And
I think as far as boundaries, I'm not sure if they may actually do the boundaries, I'm not sure, but no, as far as welcome to
Right.
Sandy Oaks.
No, that'd be
they're not
something
doing that.
different.
It's
We're
one
looking
thing to
at-
have an exit, say, okay, you're going to Sandy Oaks,
That's-
they get off the exit and, okay, where's Sandy
Well, I
Oaks?
think we may need to do that.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
to do that ourselves, right. I
But
just
that was
wanted
part
to
of our initiative. We're still getting emails and phone calls from people saying, I didn't know we were a city. And we thought, well, this would be an easy way
Yeah.
to kind of, if you're getting off on that exit, you're coming to Sandy Oaks. So,
But this will be, this should be accomplished here in the near future. Don't know what their turnaround is, 60, 90 days, something like that, for them to get the signs made and then get them out on the highway.
So that'd be cool, I have
It's a work in progress.
Okay, did they mention anything about whether there'd be any cost involved?
cost.
No cost.
No cost.
Very good.
Can we
we
have
can almost afford that.
Jim, can we have a motion, or can I make a motion to have a little recess, short recess
before we
Sure.
move on for health break,
yes,
The,
just for 5 or 10 minutes.
I'll second that.
the time is 10:32.
We're making good progress.
This meeting will stand in recess for 10 minutes.
Making very good progress.
Turn off the recording.
You don't want to listen to 10 minutes of,
I don't care.
we got to remember to push the button again when we come back.
I don't know if there's a pause on here.
It's 10:42. The session is now back on.
Turn it on? Okay, it is now.
For the next item on the agenda, I have stated that I'm going to recuse myself from this meeting as there are some members of the community that think there's conflict of interest, and I have, whatever's going to be said today, I've had no part of any discussion, and as long as I'm mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from this meeting. Thank you. Mr. Gay?
Okay, item number 12 on the agenda. Discuss and consider a proposal from the Waterwood Park Property Owners Association on the transfer of assets of the WPPOA to the city of Sandy Oaks, Texas.
Mr. Gary,
May
I'm
I-
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Before we begin discussion, I'd like to recommend just a brief executive session just to go over a few.
Yes, I was going to say, we're going to call that into an executive session, but I would also like to state that in the audience, we do have Mr. Pedro Adriano, who is the Vice President?
Board member?
Board member of the WPPOA. And should we need to ask any questions of him, can we call him in?
The chair can call on a member of that, yes.
Okay, all right, so if you would please keep yourself available for us while we discuss this.
I would
At this-
also like to make a motion that Ms. Ray be also recused from the meeting because of her position on the board.
Who's gonna take minutes? Somebody else needs to take minutes.
We have a recording for the minutes.
Well, the recording cannot be on while there's executive session.
Yeah, there is no
Yes,
recording.
it
That's
can.
fine. Well, again, I'd like to go to executive to discuss some of these, we can figure out who's talking. And there won't be any deliberation on the actual issue, but I'd like to talk about issues related to the deliberation. And then we'll come out and announce.
But she is also not a voting member of this council.
Yeah, I'd like to, if we can go to executive session, we can discuss.
Okay, but at this time, we will go into executive session under the 551 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss this property transfer. If we could have the members please wait outside, and we will notify you when we are ready to come back in.
And sir, can you take your computer with you, please?
Okay.
I
No,
take
it
it,
has to
it
be
needs to
off.
leave. Thank you.
All right, the recorder is
Oh,
off
hold
now.
on, let me turn mine off. Yes, I talked to him, not to his office.
Because I emailed him and he hasn't. I mean, it's only been a couple,
Yeah, I talked to him, that's for yesterday.
Okay.
but so I.
And I have everything's moving, everything's good.
Okay, the meeting of the City Council of Sandy Oaks is now back in session. Do we have a motion on item number 12?
I'd like to make a motion to instruct the attorney to act on items discussed in executive session.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for our attorney to act on the items discussed in executive session. Do we have a second on that motion?
Let's take it down.
Seconded by Joel Ortega. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, we got unanimous. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, just so you know, you can vote even though you're
Oh, okay.
presiding as mayor, but Mayor Pro Tem can still vote when presiding as mayor.
Okay,
You don't have to, but you may.
yeah, it would be a mute point here, but yes, I agree with that.
Like,
With it, it
we
would
can
be
say
all five-
unanimous, it can be
all
recorded as
five of
4-0
us,
or
yeah.
5-0, so you are welcome to vote.
Okay, so anyway. Tremblay and Ortega. It was unanimous. Okay, if we can get Jim to come back in, we can take care of the last item on the list and,
Can we,
Actually,
I believe you said it was gonna,
okay,
Yeah.
oh, you,
I would
okay.
recommend
all right,
just-
all right,
Yeah, I
all right.
recommend-
Item number 13 on the list, discuss and consider an agreement with Waterwood Property Owners, Park Property Owners Association for the rental or use of the clubhouse and to hold meeting, to hold meetings of the City Council of the City of Sandy Oaks, Texas, and for other functions that may arise in the future, and authorize the mayor to exercise such an agreement to the city, to the council at the next regular council meeting. What we're looking for there is just that we have an agreement with the WPPOA for the use of this building, whether it be at a cost or whether it be for free or anything. And we will ask the mayor to draw that up. Or you can draw that up. and
Can we do
present it.
that? Can we have the mayor draw up an agreement for execution between the city and the WPPOA?
I would instruct the city attorney to do that.
Okay,
And the mayor has recused himself, so I would just phrase that Mayor Pro Tem. If we're gonna have somebody execute the agreement, I should just be the Mayor Pro Tem.
okay, so I should execute the agreement with the
You can say
WPPOA.
mayor, but if he recuses, then the duty will fall
Okay.
on you anyway, so just for clarity, it'll be you.
Okay.
So we'll change that to mayor pro
We'll change
tem.
that to for Mayor Pro Tem. I will enter into the agreement with the WPPOA to have an agreement for the use of the building and the facilities here.
Now, are we gonna discuss,
Discuss
on
and
that?
consider.
so what kind of terms do we think would be?
Well, we have to find out what they have to offer first.
We can certainly present one to them. We could do it at no cost, we could do it $1. People typically do $1 just so there's consideration, so it's an enforceable contract. So I'd
Okay,
recommend at least be $1, whether that dollar is, you know, it can be accumulated, you can pay it in a year from now, or whatever, but,
okay,
and the main is having consideration on both ends, the dollar, and delineating liability insurance. So typically, the landlord, in this case, the WPPOA, would have liability insurance on the structure, premises liability, and its contents, and then the city, just as the occupant or the user, the temporary user, would utilize our TML, our current insurance for anything incident that may happen during our possession, and our workman's comp would cover any employee's issues. So if an employee tripped or whatever, then they would be covered. So those are standard lease agreement, commercial lease agreement provisions. But those are the main ones we're concerned with here: is price, which again I would recommend it be $1, and then a clear delineation that the landowner has premises liability, and we simply have the normal occupant type liabilities.
Well, I think my concern with that is, it appears as if the city would trump availability of these facilities to the residents if somebody wanted to hold a party or something.
no.
Well, no, because that's true. We're getting preferential treatment. Do the residents get to do it for $1?
And that's up to they're the landlord. If they're agreeable to whatever fee they wish to charge, they can do that. If we were the landlord and we were making it available to the public, correct, we would have to charge the same rate to everyone.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
But they're a private entity. They can, they may find it to their benefit to give nonprofits or the city a low rate. But that's really their board's decision to enter into. We can
At
make
this
the
point,
offer.
I think we should just authorize the mayor pro tem to negotiate an agreement
There we go.
and provide it at the next city council meeting, rather than us sit here and hash out an agreement.
Negotiate with
Once
ourselves.
we get use of the facility, then, all we want is use of the facility. And in the future, if something else happens, so then we can tackle that later on. But at this point, we're just looking for an agreement, and I think allowing Alderman Gay to negotiate that, and we can look at the actual.
Look at the agreement then and
Sure,
negotiate it.
wording
Okay.
At our next meeting, if it can be done between now and then, great. But that's what I would motion, that we just amend this to authorize.
Okay, we have a
Mayor
motion
Pro
on the
Tem
floor.
to negotiate an agreement for use of the facility.
All right, motion on the floor is for myself to negotiate an agreement with the WPPOA for use of the building. Do we have a second on that motion?
But do we need to clarify that we're amending item 13 on the agenda to replace mayor with mayor pro tem?
Well, he said, you said
Exactly.
it automatically
Yes.
goes to him, right?
Yeah,
We can
Well,
amend
I'm
that.
just saying, the agenda says the mayor.
You can say the mayor. For the record, the mayor is going to recuse himself, and so any duty assigned to the mayor that he's unable to perform falls on the mayor pro tem.
Okay.
So
The motion was to authorize
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem Alderman Gay to negotiate an agreement with the PPOA for use of the clubhouse for our official meetings.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Okay. Being that is the last item on the agenda, except for number 4, to adjourn, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Motion motion by Ortega, second by Thomasini. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much.